Hi, this is Kim Droptiny reading Grief Opened the Door to Heaven, Chapter 32, Streams in the Desert. I do not ask my cross to understand, my way to see. Better in darkness just to feel thy hand and follow thee. Adelaide Ann Proctor. My favorite devotional is called Streams in the Desert, which was compiled by Mrs. Charles E. Cowman. She and her husband spent many years as missionaries in Japan and Korea, but then her husband's health failed and they had to return to the United States, where for 6 years he was very ill. Here is what she has written in the foreword about that painful time in their lives. One day we were walking along the seashore, wondering almost if God had forgotten to be gracious. A little leaflet lay at our feet. We picked it up and read, "God smiles on his child in the eye of the storm," and we caught anew a glimpse of his loving face. His choicest cordials were kept for our deepest faintings, and we have been held in his strong, loving arms these trying years till we have learned to love our desert because of his wonderful presence with us. End of quotation. Isn't that priceless? Someone gave the devotional to me when I was having difficulties in my marriage and did not feel loved. At times, my trials seemed more than I could bear, and it was that little book that carried me through. I continued to read it after my divorce and on into my early years in Berlin. It always gave me God's perspective on suffering and pain and encouraged me to trust the Father. I had loaned the book to Gabe about a year before he passed and was pleased that he had enjoyed it as much as I did. Thankfully, the book was there on his nightstand after he passed, and I opened it to the date of his departure from this earth and read, "It is the Lord. Let him do what seemeth good." 1 Samuel 3:18. See God in everything, and God will calm and color all that thou dost see. It may be that the circumstances of our sorrows will not be removed. Their condition will remain unchanged. But if Christ as Lord and Master of our life is brought into our grief and gloom, he will compass us about with songs of deliverance. To see him and to be sure that his wisdom cannot err, his power cannot fail, his love can never change, to know that even his direst dealings with us are for our deepest spiritual gain, is to be able to say in the midst of bereavement, sorrow, pain, and loss, "The Lord gave, and the Lord hath taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." H.W. Smith. I was blown away by the unbelievable appropriateness of that entry, although I shouldn't have been, because that type of thing had happened again and again. It always seemed mysterious how timely and apt a day's entry can match the ebbs and flows of my life. In the spring, I found this entry. And there was Mary Magdalene and the other Mary sitting over against the sepulchre. Matthew 27:61. How strangely stupid is grief. It neither learns nor knows, nor wishes to learn nor know. When the sorrowing sisters sat over against the door of God's sepulchre, did they see the 2,000 years that have passed triumphing away? Did they see anything but this? Our Christ is gone. Your Christ and my Christ came from their loss. Myriad mourning hearts have had resurrection in the midst of their grief, and yet the sorrowing watchers looked at the seed form of this result and saw nothing. What they regarded as the end of life was the very preparation for coronation, for Christ was silent that he might live again in tenfold power. They saw it not. They mourned, they wept, and went away, and came again, driven by their hearts to the sepulchre. Still, it was a sepulchre, unprophetic, voiceless, lusterless. So with us. Every man sits over against the grave in his garden in the first instance and says, "This woe is irredeemable. I see no benefit in it. I will take no comfort in it." And yet, right in our deepest and worst mishaps, often our Christ is lying, waiting for resurrection. Where our death seems to be, there our Savior is. Where the end of hope is, there's the brightest beginning of fruition. Where the darkness is thickness, there the bright beaming light that never is set is about to emerge. When the whole experience is consummated, then we find that a garden is not disfigured by a grave. Our joys are made better if there be sorrow in the midst of them, and our sorrows are made bright by the joys that God has planted around them. End of quotation. I came upon this poem in the summer, almost a year after the great anguish. I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you unto myself. Exodus 19:4. Fearing to launch on full surrender's tide, I asked the Lord, where would its waters glide my troubled little bark? To troubled seas I dread. Unto myself, he said. Weeping beside an open grave I stood. In bitterness of soul I cried to God, where leads this path of sorrow that I trod? Unto myself, he said. Striving for souls, I loved the work too well. Then disappointments came. I could not tell the reason till he said, I am thine all, unto myself I call. Watching my heroes, those I love the best, I saw them fail, they could not stand the test. Even by this the Lord, through tears not few, unto himself me drew. Unto himself? No earthly tongue can tell the bliss I find, since in his heart I dwell. The things that charmed me once seem all as naught. Unto himself I'm brought. End of quotation. The last two lines of that poem are true in my life. Christ is worth more than anything this life has to offer. It was pain, trouble, and woe that taught me the truth. Without darkness, I couldn't see the light. That's the end of chapter 32. And hopefully, I will see you in the next chapter. And I pray you would get that little book, Streams in the Desert, and let it be a blessing into your life. May God bless you.